Hey guys, forsakeNXE here, and today I want to bring you a TvP build guide. We look at innovation versus mana here. Excuse me, I just had to sneeze there. And I want to do this video in two parts. The first one will be just looking at the build, and the second part will be understanding the build, how to react to different things, depending on what you scout, what you see your opponent do, and stuff like this. So the first part, I just want to talk about a few things anyways, just like not related to this game in particular, because, it's the early game. What I want to tell you right away is that this is a reactor first expand, so no units, no Reaper before the reactor, into a factory and a starport and a second gas with a factory. That's basically the meta at the moment. I really want to stress that because it changes kind of almost monthly right now, because Legacy just got released a few months back. So that's also why this guide just comes out right now, and I didn't make any before because they would just be redundant really quickly. But I just saw a guide or like builds for TVT and TVZ, which are kind of the same way like this build, So you have like one build with different adjustments and different units for every matchup, which is really cool, which is really easy to learn. And therefore I wanted to make 3 videos. So you will be seeing a guide for TVZ and TVT soon too. And yeah. So let's talk about the build here. It's again a reactor expand. And then you go into a factory. And the big thing is that innovation also has CV scouts here. I want to stress that because it's really important to a CV scout if you do this build, because otherwise you won't scout because you don't have a Reaper. And I feel like at the moment in the current meta, it doesn't really matter that much if you scout with a Reaper, because I think there's nothing that you can see with the Reaper that you can't also see with the SCV. So there you go, it's just a really, really good way of scouting, and the Reaper, in my opinion, is not really needed, and it's also pretty redundant pretty quickly because you get the adapts and you get stuff like pylon overcharges, so it gets really hard to keep your Reaper alive and basically to do anything except maybe a second suicide scout, which is really questionable if you would get another full base scout off anyways, because pylon overcharge, at least at the current state, is really, really good at shutting down Reapers. So there you go. Innovation goes into a 1-1-1. Basically, that's what we see here. He goes into a reactor expand into a 1-1-1. And this is true for all the other builds I will show you as well, for the other matchups. And then you can do what you need to in order to survive or to be aggressive. So innovation scouts right now, I wouldn't do this on ladder. This is I think just a reaction by him, because he saw mana losing his first adapt, which was really, really, really painful for mana. It shouldn't have happened. So he can be aggressive with these 4 Marines, because the second adapt will take some time to come out, because the first one died. So there's that. Behind that, there is the Cyclone, and this is really important as well, especially in TvP, because the Cyclone is the one unit that can kind of poke at the front, poke at some adapts, and also be really, really useful defensively early on, and against War Prism, it basically shuts them down completely. The only unit that shuts them down even more is the Liberator here. That's also where this Liberator is coming out, and then you can see an Engineering Bay at 4 minutes here against any shenanigans that might come up by the Protoss here. So yeah, there you go. The Liberator, the Cyclone here is kind of doing some stuff at the front. I won't really focus on it. I want to focus on the build itself. The meta in TvP right now, for the moment, I'm sure this changes eventually, is Marine Tank, believe it or not. That's mostly because the core composition for Protoss are adapts, and adapts are really, really squishy against the splash damage of tanks plus the DPS of Marines, so that's pretty good. And you can see how easily this aggression is shut down here by innovation. He could have saved the Cyclone, I'm pretty sure of that, but he missed micros here, and to be fair, the Cyclone is a pretty clumsy unit, so yeah, that happens. So there you go. Important to note here is that the starport is idle. The starport is idle as long as you do not think there is a lot of aggression coming out. Once INnoVatioN recognizes that Mana has a lot of units here and is kind of being aggressive, then he will try to get a medevac out to micro the tanks, basically. And please notice how INnoVatioN is still producing tanks, and it's really, really important to just continuously do that. Why I want to come to like in the second part of the analysis, basically. INnoVatioN saw a lot of stalkers here, so that's why I built a second bunker and the medevac. So yeah, he just wants to be safe. He expects blink stalkers here, and this is, I think, a fair assumption because there are a lot of stalkers for mana. And there's the third CC at like 5 minutes and 15 or 30 seconds. That's a pretty standard third CC. The timing is that because the Protoss third base is also at this time. The most important thing here is that he adds his second and third racks right now at 6 minutes. And you can see that he has no stim, no combat shield, no marine tags, and there comes another 2 gases here with the 2 barracks, which is also really important to add on. And that's basically the build right here. You want to add 2 tech labs at the barracks to get your marine upgrades and defend with siege tanks. And the Liberator, pretty late to the party here. If he would have just sieged up there, this would have been much easier defense than it already is with the tanks. Mana does some damage here because INnoVatioN is kind of out of position with his tanks, and it's kind of hard to micro all of them with 1 medevac. But in the end, Mana is wasting a lot of army here, so that's a pretty good trade for INnoVatioN. And he has a third CC where Mana does not have a third base. You can see 1,000 minerals in the bank here for Mana just a second ago. This means his macro really slipped up, and that's really pretty bad because he could have gotten a third base much quicker with these minerals. And then you can see INnoVatioN is setting up for a really strong mid-game timing with the tanks, with the medevacs, with the bio. And this is basically a stim combat shield +1 timing attack. And this will be your timing attack to kind of transition out of tanks if you want to. If you don't want to, you can continue building tanks. But it really depends on what you scout and what your opponent is doing. And also INnoVatioN scouts the Stargates here. The really important thing right now in TvP is, which Mana didn't do, is Warp Prism into Stargate play or Stargate into Warp Prism play. The reason is because of this, because the Liberator is really scary, and if you do not place your pilots properly, it can ruin your day as a Protoss player. So yeah, there's the reason behind that. If he's going for a Stargate, you won't be doing really much drops, but he also can't do like anything because you have Cyclone and Marines in your mineral lines and tanks protecting your bases. So overall, it's pretty hard for Protoss to get damage done because you have really strong defensive units, and all you need to do is basically macro up until you have your timing attack ready for stim, combat shield, and +1 attack. So you can hit this with your tanks. You can also see, again, it's Marine Tank in the meta right now in TvP. Again, this will change surely, I think. Therefore, INnoVatioN goes super heavy Marines here. You really need to be careful about one thing, about a Colossus transition. If your opponent does a Colossus transition while you are a Marine Tank and he gets a lot of Colossi out, then you are pretty screwed. I don't really know why Mana is going for Immortals here. The Colossi are a much better choice, but Mana is also way too far behind at the moment because he invests into basically useless Stargate tech that don't do anything in the upcoming push for INnoVatioN, and this army just doesn't cut it against the bio. So I don't really think Mana read the situation here correctly, and his decisions were kind of bad. But nothing to take away, like Mana is a great player anyways, but this is just like I don't think he expects this kind of move out and build from INnoVatioN, and the Phoenixes are super useless. He builds 2 Phoenixes at a time, so his ground army is really small, and then he engages in the middle of the map like this against like all this bio and just gets completely shreked here. Yeah, so we can talk about different things the Protoss opponent can do and how you want to counteract them, and this also just highlights how flexible this build is and how it can react to basically everything your opponent is doing and defending against almost everything at the same time. And INnoVation just goes on to win the game right here. We'll just wait for that, you know, because it's always cool to see a Protoss lose and see Protoss GG, so that's nice. So let's watch that, let the cinematic close up, and then INnoVation wins the game. So let's talk about the builds and different reactions and things you want to do. So your first important scout is the SCV scout. What does your SCV see? Your SCV sees if it's a proxy, you know there's a pylon missing, there's 2 gases which have a really a lot of gas mined already, and there's also a mothership core on the way, then that's proxy Stargate. Then you can have another proxy with a mothership core, so that means it's either Blink Stalkers or DTs. The thing, the reason to differentiate between the two of those is that if your opponent is going for DTs, he will be defensive at home, warping in like at 1 pylon or warp prism around your base, dropping the DTs, but his main army will be defensive. So if you scout your opponent being defensive and like going for like and being 1 base, you can pretty much assume, not 100%, but assume that he's going for DT, so you can get the engineering bay and 2 turrets or 3 turrets for defending. And if you scout your opponent being really aggressive, then you can assume it's Blink, like assuming it's Stalkers, and adjust to that. So yeah, everything else is just like pretty normal. Like if he goes for a warp prism kind of all in, if he goes for any kind of gateway pressure, you have tanks, you have liberators, they shut this down completely. So there's that. So you can react to every kind of 1 base play really easily. You can also react to every 2 base play really easily. You have tanks for defending a frontal push and a liberator. You have Cyclone and the liberator against the Warp Prism, a depth play, which is really popular on ladder, which shuts this down really hard. Let me tell you, like I did this multiple times on ladder, and it's really hard for the Protoss player to find damage if you are in position with everything. If you have tanks, like 1 tank at every CC, if you have a Liberator and a Cyclone at either side, the Warp Prism can come in, then it's really hard for a Protoss player to find any damage whatsoever. And then you can also adjust everything on the fly. Like notice INnoVation's starport is a little bit idle for the longest time because he doesn't really need the units. He's focusing on tanks. But you can also get your gas at your natural quicker if you really need to. And if you scout heavy aggression, by all means go for another liberator, go for another medevac. If you think you need, like if he is really committing to Stargate play, by all means go for a second Cyclone. You know, you are really flexible. You have all the units available to you, and you can use them really efficiently if you need to. So don't go autopilot. Don't just build Marine, tank, 1 Cyclone, 1 liberator every game. Adjust to what you see your opponent is doing by building the right units, and that's the strength of this build, you know, adjusting to what your opponent is doing. So there's that, and you can see INnoVation again like holds this pretty easily. It's really important to know that the Liberator really helps in defense as well as the tanks. So there's that. Again, your transition is really late with Stim and Combat Shield, but this doesn't really matter, as in TvP right now the Terran is the defender because he can get a pretty good army up, and Protoss is the aggressor to try to do some damage. So if you survive without taking any real amount of damage, then you are in a really good position. Also notice that the Liberator here can chase down the Warp Prism across the map, but he doesn't want to, as he might run into more Stalkers. So that's kind of a safe decision to not chase the Warp Prism here because mana is really aggressive. So you can argue that there could be some Stalkers waiting for the Liberator to chase. If you lose the Liberator, you lose air control, you lose zoning power against the Warp Prism, so that's pretty bad. So that's that. Okay, so then INnoVation sets up for his mid-game timing right here, and Mana is doing some I don't know stuff. The moment you realize that you are really safe against Protoss, by all means go for this Liberator aggression. It's really strong against Protoss, especially if the Protoss is not good in placing his pylons. You know, like Mana is right here. If INnoVation wouldn't have been so greedy right now and basically sieged up the whole mineral line and just a smidge at the far away mineral patches, then I think for Mana it would be really hard to defend. He goes for the Phoenix, so that's kind of nice, you know. But yeah, that's also why the meta again is Stargate, like Robo to Stargate or Stargate to Robo in TvP right now, because you need them to defend against Liberators. So what I did the other day is I scouted my opponent going Nexus first, and I just did alright, and basically I never stopped building tanks and liberators, and I just had a really, really strong timing. And the liberators especially were really hard to deal with for him because because if he goes for kind of a late tech and no Stargate, liberators are really strong. So if you see, alright, if you think you can abuse your opponent not going Stargate by building 1, 2, or even 3 liberators, by all means go for it. You can always micro away and not lose them. So that's nice. Yeah, so then the timing hits, and that's the build for TvP, I think. I would highly suggest getting a bunker at the bottom of your ramp with the SCV that's building your second supply depot. Like let's find the appropriate timestamp here. I think it would be like yeah, right now with this SCV you want to get a bunker like right down here because it helps you prevent pylon rushes and overcharges, like, you know, all the stuff where it builds pylons at your ramp and then overcharges them with the mothership core. If you have a bunker like right here, pretty safe, you know, not 100% safe, but the other pylons need to be kind of right here to break the supply depots, so you can defend from the high ground on this map especially, you know. But I also would like get just a safety bunker just in case at the bottom of your ramp to defend this kind of stuff. Yeah, so I think I covered mostly everything. The big important factor is that you position your units correctly to defend any kind of aggression. So, you know, the normal War Prism timing is around 5 to 5:30 minutes, you know. So you need to position your Liberator at one point, at least that's what I'm doing, you know. I'm putting my Liberator kind of right over here. When if you look at the minimap, my Liberator would be here, and my Cyclone would be here, or the other way around, and my Marines would be in between the bases, so I can respond to any Adept run-bys and stuff really easily. That's one of the safest things you can do, or you just fill up your Marines also on both military lines, so you are really safe against any kind of Stargate play, for example, as well. So, yeah. Again, the build really relies on you scouting well and adjusting better, you know, because you really want to adjust your game here and your units you're producing. That's what makes this build so strong, that you can, depending on what you see, what you scout, what you expect from your opponent, get different amounts and different types of units to defend everything. So that's it for me. Hope you liked it. You can watch me play the game with mostly these builds I'm also doing guides on Twitch. So if you want to do that, you can basically, yeah, do that almost daily. Let's say semi-daily, because I have also like a lot of like work to do, which I basically am required to be away over the weekends. Also have long distance relationships, so there's that also, which takes time out of my gaming life, so to speak. So yeah, I will stream occasionally, let's call it, on Twitch. It was on Twitter, Facebook, so you can follow me at all these addresses for more guides and tips, tricks, you know, videos, stuff like this. And I will see you back for the TvT and TvZ variation of this build and another guide pretty soon. So thanks for watching, guys, and have a great day. Enjoy StarCraft, kick some Protoss ass, and win some games. Cheers!